Hello, hello, Baba Sam. Welcome to the Mentally a Badass podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Justine. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so excited to pick your brain because this is a very interesting topic. I actually personally I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder and I have family that has MS. So I'm just like I can't wait to just like pick your brain on that. So before we get in, for every Mentally About Us episode, we like to learn more about you personally before we dive into all of your wisdom. So you were diagnosed with bipolar and you had bipolar throughout your school life. When were do you remember the day that you were diagnosed by any chance?
Now, I don't remember the specific day, but what really happened was I had early childhood trauma at age 6, hit by a van. And they discovered now through today's discoveries, they discovered that early childhood trauma can lead into bipolar. They know that correlation is there today.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for me, I have my own like childhood trauma. When you got hit by a van, I'm really curious to know a little bit about that story. Like, what happened? Someone just like randomly hit you?
Well, what the story was with the van running over me was the last day of first grade. So I don't know if
Mm.
you're familiar with the United States. We have the ice cream trucks, and they play the familiar music. And I was like, "Oh, ice cream truck is here!" So I ran to my mom for the money. Then I ran out the front door, across the street, got my ice cream. Then I went across the street and I didn't see this car, or maybe I did see, but I later understood that when you're very young, you don't know the skills of avoidance. So it's how the school
Mm.
zones are like 15. Even that's too fast for somebody that's 5, 6 years old because they don't have the skills of avoidance. So they can see something coming right at them, but they can't avoid it. So the van ran over me right when I was getting my ice cream. It said last day of first grade. And then I spent about a year in the hospital with
Mhm.
the injuries that I had, the broken hip, broken elbow, the head trauma.
Okay, so you ended up in the hospital with broken bones, and after, obviously you're okay now, which is good. I'm so glad you didn't die or anything like that. And when you were a child, did you experience like any type of like PTSD or like feeling on edge after
Yeah,
that?
those well, even before the accident, I would probably be on the autism spectrum because I was
Hmm.
always very shy, very introverted, very much, hiding behind people. That was sort of my thing growing up, was hiding behind my parents, just very scared of people. So it was a lot of stuff I was dealing with mentally, but during this time, there was really no mental health coming.
Yeah, around what decade, like around what year? I'm just curious, like
In
time
the
frame wise.
70s.
70s. Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of people that talk to me about, their mental health around that age, and it's like all like the same consistent answer, not much mental health. I mean, I totally like it's so different. I'm a 95 baby, so like especially I mean for Gen Z, it's definitely more like normalized. For me, I had a little bit of like no one talked about it. It's like we don't care about your feelings or anything like that. But yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And you also mentioned that well, not anymore. We're going to talk more into that, of course. But you have an MS diagnosis. I actually have that in the family, and it's very upsetting and very tragic to have. So I want to talk about your experience. I know it can start out slow and then it could progress. Unfortunately, one of my family members had it kind of like end game. When were you diagnosed? Like, how was that experience?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at the age of 37. The way
Hmm.
it hit me, because besides the bipolar, which I was diagnosed in my 20s, and I had some other conditions as well, like migraines. Used to really have really severe chronic migraines. And this was one day I had the worst migraine of my life. Something felt different about it because my whole left side of the body was numb. My vision wasn't right, my balance was a little off, that things were, really something was seriously wrong at that point. Something was just seriously wrong.
Hmm.
So I called my neurologist that I had for my migraines. And I told him what was going on. Said, okay, since it's Friday, I'll give you a stronger medicine, see if it will help with the pain, and I'll see you on Monday in the office. So I take this medicine, but me and my wife were like, there's something wrong. So we go to the ER. They check me for a stroke. I don't have a stroke. So I see my doctor on Monday and he orders the MRI. And by Wednesday, I'm in the hospital because I can't walk. I can barely see. My whole left side of the body is numb.
Hmm.
So, what they do with multiple sclerosis, there's not one single test where they can say, oh, you have MS.
Hmm.
So I was in the hospital for about 2, 3 weeks, testing me for everything and anything until they finally concluded, all right, you don't have any of these other conditions. So it has to be multiple sclerosis. So after that, they sent me to rehab. So when I went to rehab, I couldn't walk. I really couldn't really function. So I was in rehab for, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks in rehab, learning to function as a disabled man. Because at that point, I couldn't really walk. My
Hmm.
vision was terrible. The vision, my left side of the body was numb. I had all these issues. So I lived with MS for 7 years. I was in that state where I needed, the cane, the walker, all that stuff, because MS can be really a progressive disease and really deteriorating disease. But I just want to remind people, that diagnosis does not have to impact your destiny.
Hmm.
We can really get locked onto these diagnoses and think our future is over, and it really isn't the case. It's just that our diagnosis is just information, and we
Hmm.
still have that power within us to create this new future.
Yeah. And so you were in rehab and you had the cane and such. And when did you eventually don't have to like use the cane anymore?
Yeah, so the way this story came about was quite interesting because one of the things with multiple sclerosis, besides the walking difficulties, and it is the number one cause of disability among young adults, during this time, I was dealing with a lot of fatigue. I had a lot of ailments. That was my seventh diagnosis at that point. Besides the bipolar, I had a whole bunch of other things besides migraine, now the MS, and I had all these issues. So I was very fatigued. So I used to watch a lot of TV. And one of the things I used to watch on TV was ghost hunting shows. But I'm like, that's TV. I don't know if it's real or fake. So I saw a tweet from a ghost hunter. Hey, we're having this event in Philadelphia. It's like, oh, I can go to that. I can get a hotel nearby because it's going to be nighttime. It's in the summer. Heat and MS do not play well together. So
Yeah.
for this event, I could only be outside for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half with my cooling vest because with the MS, I had to wear a cooling vest. Anything above 70 degrees, my body would start to shut down. So that's the best way I can explain it. The body would just start to shut down, so becoming even more difficult to function. So I went to this ghost hunt. I didn't know if it was real or fake. So I just did my research on this place, Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia. I'm like, okay, it looks like the casemates supposedly have the most activity. So if I'm going to have an experience, it's going to be there. So I got myself into the casemates and I'm just sitting there on a bench. Not much is happening. It's actually kind of slow, kind of boring. Then somebody put out their flashlight, and the flashlight was going on and off. I was like, well, that's interesting, but it's their flashlight. So I put out my flashlight and it was doing the same thing. But the thing that really got my attention, because I'm sitting on a bench and right next to me, somebody sat down that wasn't there. So I felt somebody sit down next to me on the bench that wasn't there. And when they sat down next to me, I just felt this overwhelming sense of dread come over me. So I
Hmm.
was like, well, that was really curious. What's this all about? So it was like it sparked that curiosity within me. It's like, all right, well, who speak to ghosts? Who speaks to dead people? Mediums. Let me go read a book from a medium and see what this is all about. But this took me a long time to get through this book because I was dealing with MS. My eyesight wasn't great. Reading for too long, more than like 10 minutes, would give me a migraine. So it was really just reading a couple pages a day, 2, 3 pages a day, and that was it. So it was a very slow journey through this book. And I think I actually read 2 or 3 books from mediums. But eventually, I got into this book where they talked about how they use meditation to get into this space to have that communication. So, like, all right, so meditation. All right, so one of the things they talked about with meditation was inner peace. Like, I need inner peace, so I'm going to meditate. So basically, this book had literally 2 pages on meditation. Basically, to sit comfortably, relax, creating a comfortable environment. That was pretty much it. So I sat there in meditation, but I was always under the impression that meditation means you stop thinking. So I'm sitting there, mind's thinking. I'm saying, stop thinking, mind thinking, stop thinking. I'm really in this loop of chasing my thoughts. So this went on for about 4 or 5 days. Then I realized, wait a second, this is a thought chasing a thought. If I'm aware of my thoughts, then I'm not my thoughts. This was a huge realization. This was a huge realization for me because when I was suicidal in my 20s, nearly taking my life twice, I took my thoughts as truth that life is too hard, too difficult, and all these kind of mental stories. And even when I saw my psychiatrist for 17, 18 years, whatever it was, he never once said to me, "Why are your thoughts true?" I was completely identified with thoughts. So once I realized I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts, then I was sitting with that question now with who am I? And I was only sitting for 5 minutes a day. It was a very simple practice. So now when the mind was thinking, I would come back to my feet, mind thinking, where are my feet? Mind thinking, where are my feet? So I was learning to be present. I wasn't even aware that this is what I was doing. I had no spiritual teachers. I had nothing. I read 2 pages on meditation. This was it. So I had a 5 minute practice of just relaxing. So now the mind thinking back to feet and the mind was getting quieter, but I was sitting with this question. If I'm not my thoughts, who am I? So one evening after meditation, I just heard a voice say, perfect spirit. I'm like, that's it. My spirit is perfect. Your spirit is perfect, Justine. And everyone listening here, their spirits are perfect. It's simply the body and mind that are damaged. Then I
Hmm.
felt this deep, deep sense of peace, and I just had a knowing all is well, and all sense of fear about my health was simply gone. I knew it was all over at that point. So at that point, the mind was very quiet. I was just following this voice, this inner knowing to do this, to do that. And over 14 months, the body was completely recovered, no medicine. I even kept my last neurologist appointment because I had 3 neurologists at this time, 2 for MS, 1 for migraines. So I kept the one neurologist. So I did all the tests before I saw him, got the scans, got the blood work. So I go see him because my health is completely restored at this point. It's like, I'm going to go see him and see what he has to say about this. So he's looking at my results. Well, your scans are clean. Your blood work's perfect. I'm doing a physical exam on you. Only thing I see is a non-specific hand tremor that everyone has. And I was his
Hmm.
last appointment for the day. So he sat there and questioned me for 45 minutes, trying to quantify what I did. And he had no answers. So when I can look back now, what they would actually call this today in the spiritual space as a radical awakening with a spontaneous healing.
You just made me so happy because it gives me so much hope because I struggle with chronic illness myself. I don't know for sure if mine can. I'm gonna tell you what it is. I have glaucoma in my right eye, which is considered a chronic illness. I don't know if that would. I mean, that would be literally a miracle. I mean, that I wish that could be something that would be healed. You know how happy I would be in life. You know how hard it's so hard with my
Yeah,
right eye.
you just never know. That's what I tell people. With MS, multiple sclerosis, you can literally find thousands and millions of articles out there telling you it's incurable. There are a
Yeah.
handful of us that no longer have MS. There are a handful of people out there that no longer have it. We have to realize who we are is spirit. And they remind you in the Course of Miracles that there's no degree of difficulties in miracles. So it's really understanding that you are spirit and all things are possible. And I tell people within us is this inner healer. We don't need to figure out how to heal ourselves. If anything, this is mental interference. We really want to get the mind out of the way, or we're not paying attention to the mind as a source of truth. Like I said, I just follow this deeper wisdom within me, that inner healer, to do this, to do that. And it wasn't me trying to figure out how to heal. You have to
Mhm.
understand, I was a sick disabling for 38 years. I had all these stories. So I had zero concept of healing myself. It was too impossible for my mind to accept. So my focus was, I just wanted inner peace. I wanted less stress, less overwhelm in my life. And through peace, I transformed.
What is your take on people who have these, diseases, but like they're at end stage? Like, for example, the family member I was telling you about, she's bedridden at this
Mhm.
point. Like, what's your take on that? Like, do you think there's like any hope for her on that, or it's just,
No, we have to realize spirit can do all things. As long as
Mhm.
you're in the body, there is a possibility of change. I worked with someone with stage 4 cancer stage 4 cancer that metastasized throughout her whole body. When a friend of a friend called me in, I saw that she was literally a few days away from death. I
Mm-hmm.
could just see it. I could feel in her energy that she was on her way out. I did one 90-minute session with her, and she got out of the hospital. She got the liver life. She was able to step away from that. And the way she described it was she just would close her eyes and do this meditative practice, and she just see this golden energy just weaving in and out of the body. I can't explain it. I have all sorts of stories that the mind can't logic out, like
Mm-hmm.
someone needing knee surgery. They're like, I'm going to go schedule a session with Sam. I don't want knee surgery. So I was like, okay, let's work on your knee. One of these things I can do, I can't explain it, is I can bring in doctors from the spiritual realms. So I do this. So I'm working with her. She's like 60, 70 years old. She's elderly. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's see what we can do for your knee here. So then I got this doctor's name that came forward. And I said, do you know this doctor? And she's like, yeah, that was my childhood doctor. Well, he's making a joke. Once a patient, always a patient.
Mm-hmm.
And then today she doesn't need knee surgery. It's taken care of.
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
that was like a 15, 20-minute session. That was it.
I think I need to show this piece of content to my family before. Obviously, it's gonna take like about a month to actually go live. But I'm gonna show this and I'll be like, I feel like they're gonna think I'm crazy. They're gonna be like, really, Justine? Do you have people that come to you and like, I don't believe you. Like, you're crazy because I feel like society will have a hard time believing this. You know what I mean? So, like, what would you say to society who has this objection?
Yeah, because I can understand that because I can go into the Facebook group for migraines, which has 80,000 members. I can't go in there. They're too locked into this belief system. Because what I say with our belief system, I said the mind's full of BS. It's basically
Mm-hmm.
this negative chatter within us that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, or the belief system that we cannot heal, that we're incurable. And when those inner chatter and belief systems are very strong, it creates a blind spot. You can't see a way forward. So a lot of people in society have this blind spot. It's no fault of their own. They're just conditioned and programmed this way. So that's where I'm really working with individuals now. And this is going to be airing after this, but for February and for 30 days, I'm doing this experiment. I'm asking people who wants to try out my, beyond the diagnosis inner healer program. So I have over 23 applicants. I'm choosing 5 of the worst cases, 5 of the most really, really chronic conditions. Like, all right, we're going to see what we can do in 30 days. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, here's the end. So we're going to have a nice baseline. We're going to have nice testimonials. If there is progress here, we're going to be able to measure this. We're going to be working, it's going to be an intensive. And it's not like me, one session here and there. It's like there's going to be a really strong program here when we're interacting daily with these individuals. And I'm going to co-create a new reality with them. That's my plan. Like, you do this daily practice and I'll do my energy healing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen here? We're going to really see what's going to happen when we do these individual sessions with them doing their daily practice and me doing my energy work, the spiritual transmissions, and we will see what happens. But my insight was, who do I choose of the 23? The most chronic, the most sick. Somebody in a wheelchair, going with stage 4 liver cancer. It's really that kind of issue.
Did you already pick them? I'm blind in the right eye.
Well,
I think that's pretty bad.
yeah, I selected 2. The few others I was going to send them some messages, but yeah, I can send you a message and I'd be really, really curious about that.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be a very unique case. I mean, like, I feel like if you were to if this were to be like a miracle, I feel like that would definitely be like headlines because glaucoma is like super rare, especially in my age because I'm 29 years old, and when like if I have any new doctors like in my life, they're like, "Oh, you have glaucoma," and I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Really? I thought that was an old people disease," and I'm like, "Thank you." Like, they would literally say that to me. Like I'm not.
But yeah, I'm still open for that because I honestly don't know. I have never worked with anyone with glaucoma. I've honestly not worked with that, so I don't know.
Mhm.
So I'm just really curious. I'm looking through these applicants and looking at their issues and like, Okay, you have a laundry list of ailments like I do. Let's work together and see what we can do. You're in a wheelchair, you're dealing with all this stuff. Let's see what we can do with that. I don't know if they're going to walk or recover. I don't know if 30 days is enough time, but I'm
Hmm.
just curious what will happen with that. Will they feel more peace? Will they feel more joy for life? Because when
Hmm.
you're in a stuck in a wheelchair, or at least when I was with multiple sclerosis, it's very depressing. You
Hmm.
can't do things, you're constantly fatigued, you're constantly tired. It's hard to enjoy life. So I can at least get them to see a glimmer of hope and to enjoy life, then it's worthwhile. And that's a testimonial. Because some people may want this, that I'm dealing with all these ailments. I don't know what's going to
Hmm.
happen, but if I can just enjoy life and appreciate life, I know naturally things will start to ease up once I start losing that stress, start letting go of all this overwhelm. And we have to remember with autoimmune diseases, and I've
Hmm.
seen this with everyone with an autoimmune disease, whether it be lupus, fibromyalgia, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, there's a whole laundry list. When I'm working with these individuals, I always find an element of judgment or criticism. And
Hmm.
when you're judgment and criticism, the body attacks itself. So if I
Yeah.
can work with people with autoimmune diseases and I get them to stop attacking themselves, how will the body begin to show signs of recovery? Because I had 3 autoimmune diseases that I no longer have.
Hmm.
I don't know. I never planned this. I had that spontaneous healing.
They actually did define glaucoma recently as like an autoimmune disease. That's like, I don't know for sure how true that is. I just here and there I'll do some research and just read some stuff like online, anything like new related. And there was like one article like, oh, it defines as autoimmune because it's like just like killing like your nerves in your oh my gosh, optic nerve. But they say, can't rejuvenate the optic nerve because they say, like, out of all the parts of your body, you can't do that. And I was like, of course, the one part of the body that doctors say you cannot rejuvenate is the one I have that's dying on the right side.
You never know. You never know. If you read like Abraham Hicks, she states that, in one of her books that if you had a strong enough belief, you could regrow a arm.
Interesting. I heard that though. I've actually heard that. Have you ever seen? It's a movie and a book. Have you ever seen The Secret?
Yeah.
When I was like looking, like researching about you and such, you know what you reminded me of was the last scene. I think it was the last scene where it was a person who was in a like paralyzed, like their whole body was paralyzed, and then they like, used their thoughts to heal themselves. Like, do you remember that scene?
Yeah, because we have to realize what I try to do is you can do visualization. Joe Dispenza does a lot of visualization. What I'm trying to do, that's one of the ways, but I'm really just trying to get the mind out of the way
Hmm.
and be your perfect spirit. And that's their inner healer because it knows the way forward. It doesn't guess. Spirit knows it's connected to all that is. It knows exactly what steps you need to take to
Hmm.
recover. So yeah, it's really interesting. I have no idea what would happen over 30 days. So yeah, I have no idea. I'll send you the questionnaire over and I'll just add it to my applicants because I'm not logically sorting them out. Yeah, I see the
Hmm.
diagnosis, but I'm also tuning into this energy. Is this person willing to do the daily practice? Because I'm not
Yeah.
doing this for them. We are co-creating this reality together. I'm the only one participating and they're not. It's not going to be it's not going to be the results. It's not going to be a true test. Can people really step into their inner healer?
Yeah, well, I've honestly, if you were to pick me, I mean, of course, I have to fill out the application, I have to look into it. They are like a lot of people, in my life that does experience that. Like, I have a friend that her mom has MS. Luckily, she's not bedridden, so there could be still hope for her. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So, yeah, and I have also someone who has lupus as well. But it's like all these people that I know, and it's like, that would be phenomenal. And I can go around and brag and be like, this guy helped people heal.
Well, with people that have been in my energy, I don't know if you ever saw Charlie Goldsmith. He has a
No,
show called The Healer, and he still has
maybe.
he still has a philosophy. He wants the most difficult cases. He'll say have about an 80% success rate. And he goes through these really difficult, challenging cases. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm going for 5 individuals. I might increase that a little bit. So
Hmm.
I'm not expecting 5 out of 5. But if I get 4 out of 5, the 80%, then like
Yeah.
this works. This
Yeah.
works. If people can do this simple daily practice, it's only a 5, 10 minute practice. And the
Hmm.
thing that I'm doing different to is I don't believe in like courses and programs that are already laid out. It's going to be
Hmm.
like we do an orientation session that is specific to you. Because when I do my practice, I'm actually blending and merging with your soul. So whatever comes through is a channel specific to you to unlock the mind so the inner healer can step forward.
That's so. I'm like taking all this in, and I'm like, this is why I'm like, oh, when I saw you wanted to make the podcast, and I was like, yep, I need this is different because we want different. And I'm like, honestly, a person that I'm very open minded. So that's another thing too. Do you feel that if everybody, this is obviously hypothetical, I don't, even, this is more like opinion and such, but do you think like if everybody knew about this, like practice, and they can like heal themselves, right? Wouldn't it be, I guess, like a threat to the medical field? you know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because people have asked me, do they do any testing? Do they do you for any research projects after this? I'm like, no. Why would they research miracles? It breaks the system.
I would say I need to make sure you have full protection because then the government would be after you. You know what they say? They say if there's like one person that knows something that can heal somebody and it's a threat to like their broken system and everything, it's like then the government goes after them and then all of a sudden they're like nowhere to be found and you're like in a lake. Okay, that sounds really mean how I'm like
But it's
saying.
really, but Charlie Goldsmith, though, he is called in from hospitals and doctors and he does the
Ah.
work. He doesn't co create with them, he does the work. And he has an 80% success rate. And there's definitely miracles in what he is doing that we're doing very similar processes. When I tune into his energy, I'm doing something very similar. But what I like to do, because what I discovered is, yeah, I can take somebody from a 9, 10 level pain down to a 3. If I can get
Mm-hmm.
from a 10 to a 3 or a 9 to a 3, then I know there's a mental component. If I
Mm-hmm.
can't take that 9 down to a 3, then there's something physical that isn't a mental component. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
discoveries I made was, okay, so I take them 10 to a 3, there's a mental component. So I can get it nice and clear. There's a good chance it may come back tomorrow. So they keep doing these daily practices to keep weeding away the mind that wants to keep bringing it back because the mind hates change. It's going to wake up the next day
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, where did my pain go? Let me bring that back. So that's why it's important for people to do the daily practice. It's like we take a physical shower to get rid of the dirt. And I call my practice a mental shower that we have to remove the beliefs, the stories that we have to wash them away and diminish their power. And then once we get that mental interference out of the way, then the body can really, the body can heal itself. That's why we get a paper cut. We don't need to worry
Mm-hmm.
about it. The body will take care of it. But if you have a paper cut and you obsess about your finger, oh no, I have a paper
Mm-hmm.
cut. What am I going to do? It'll become infected because you're
Mm-hmm.
interfering with the
True.
body.
You're so right. What is your take on like for me I have I have neck problems. So and I go to like I've done like chiropractor treatment and such. So cuz you're saying that like oh the brain hates change. Let me just give you pain again, right? So
Yeah.
I guess this is more of do you think that people don't even need chiropractor care that they can just
No, so well, it's there might be benefit. There's always benefits out there. There might be a benefit to that, but it's interesting. I was working with someone with back issues before. This is when I was able to do in-person work, and like they have a back issue. So I just got up behind, put my 2 hands behind there, asked for the doctors in the spiritual realms to come forward. Straight spine. She just felt her whole spine just shifting into place.
that's
I
what I
can't explain it.
figured. No, I totally believe you on that because when I went through my whole like I had intensive treatment that was very expensive. And after like that treatment I was feeling better, but then I went from going to get treatments twice a week to like once a month, right? Because of just affordability and then like I moved and I had to like drive a little bit. So I couldn't go as often. And then I just went back into my pain all over again. And then the doctor was just like it could be stress, it could be your posture, and in my head, I'm just like, I'm always stressed out, which is not, I've actually been doing better with that. I'll talk about that later with my stress levels. But he's like, yeah, no, I could totally go back. And I'm like, great, all that money, thousands of dollars I spent. and one it could just go. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sucked, but
Yeah, so that's I'm just really curious what's going to happen for this 30-day program where I'm just doing it free, complimentary, just for the feedback and just the testimonials that I can use because I want people that are really willing to do the work and see if it is beneficial. You have to realize I had no outside help. This costed me nothing except time of just sitting there and following the mind steps. So when I was dealing with MS, I just heard that inner voice say, do yoga. I didn't protest the
mm,
mind. I just said, okay, I'm going to do yoga. So, of course, when I began yoga, I have MS. I'm falling over a lot. My balance is terrible, but I stuck with it. 6 months later, no more cane. The balance was coming back. The whole body was restoring itself just by listening to my own insights. And it comes for different people. So the practices will be different. Some people will be journaling, some people will get insights, some people will get something else. And it's just hard to say what's going to happen, but it's going to be a custom recipe for each person. So I think it'll be very interesting to have you there. So now it's just not glaucoma, you have a neck issue, you're dealing with high stress. These are really important things that a lot of people are dealing with. That this stress, the overwhelm, it's really unhealthy for the body. And you're relatively young,
yeah,
29 years old. And if we can turn that around,
great. You know how happy I will be in life? You know how many times I cry at night?
yeah, we should, yeah, you should be one of my participants. Yeah, I think it'll be
I love how I say, yeah, I love how I say, you know how much I cry at night? And
Yeah, that's good. We need to release that energy. We have to shift that energy as best we can.
I try so hard. I majority of my life, because I've always had eye problems in my right eye since birth. I had a congenital cataract when I was born, and then I was diagnosed with glaucoma at 17. And up until the age of like 20 something, I've been so like oblivious to it. Cause I was like, okay, I have my left eye. Like, just of course trying to stay as positive and be grateful for my left eye and everything. But then recently, a couple years ago, I got so triggered that I started like having the biggest mental breakdown of my life where it's like all the bad energy came out. And I'm trying to think of where this is going, but like I think I'm kind of in a way. I think I'm kind of like using you as a therapy session for like 2 seconds. But I have a lot of chronic issues, and yeah, I am young. I'm only 29 years old, and it really does suck being this young. And I sometimes think in my life, I'm just like, man, if I have all these issues now, like, what am I gonna have when I'm 40? And like sometimes I get scared to have kids. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, because by the time I was in my 20s, I had 5 diagnoses, and I lost the ability to walk at 37. So it just really, my health was getting worse and worse as time progressed. So it'd be really interesting if we could jump into some work and do this 30 days together, and just to really document your journey would be quite fascinating, and say, I'm going to go beyond my diagnosis and step into my inner healer. Let's see what happens.
yeah, and I feel like I would be definitely a good participant because I'm like, with my age and such and with my generation. And it'd be great if we can people in my generation like know this and then it's just they don't like people don't have to suffer.
Right.
Because you said you suffer for like what, 30, 40 years?
38 years.
Oh, that was close.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. My daily practice is 15, 20 minutes a day.
Hmm.
That's it. Maybe you can even probably, you might be able to find a practice. My practice was 5 minutes twice a day, ultimately ended up with it being 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. That was it. I still don't
Hmm.
sit in meditation for very long today because I'm here for the human experience. It's all peaceful and pleasant sitting in this space, but I'm here for the human experience. I'm here to talk to Justine, talk to the world, say, hey, you have something within you that can change everything for you.
I know, yeah. And you just need like a lot more people to say it because what you're doing is definitely very, very new. People, they hear things and they're all automatically skeptical, which I can understand that because there's just life. Some people, how they like, some people are just more on the defense. While like me, I'm cautious but open. I'm very open minded because I do believe that you can keep learning something new and keep evolving and being more innovative, and everything that is in our history books is not just it. Like as human beings, we're evolving, we're learning. And so that's another thing I love about this podcast is that I just talk to people from like different backgrounds, different mindsets, and I learn so much. It's amazing. When I was in high school, I had ovarian cysts, and it's just crazy how like all of a sudden I don't anymore. And I wonder if like during that peak time in high school, if I was just because I was under a lot of stress, right? And they put me
Mhm.
on birth control for like, I mean, yeah, they put me on birth control for like 15 years, I think. No, not 15 years. That would be 30, 10 years. But yeah, so 10 years. I've been on so much. Honestly, if I can just get off my medication too, you know how much money I pay for my glaucoma medication?
I'm sure it's a lot. I know my MS medication, I think my copay was, I want to say 6,000 a year for my copay.
6,000 a year for your copay for your MS
MS med
treatment
yeah,
meds. So like, okay, so obviously accumulation for because I'm assuming you probably get them. I don't know how it works because I
what
get
wa
mine a monthly.
I was getting I was getting my daily injectable for MS.
Okay,
It
that
was
makes sense.
$1,500 a quarter. That was my copay.
Okay,
It's
that's how.
1,500 so it's 1,500 a month for a copay for this medicine. And I was taking 13 daily medicines. And the doctors I was seeing, so my health care was, my copays were 8 to 10,000 a year in copays for my
Mm,
doctors and all my medicine. And that was 15 years ago.
I'm like doing the math right now, just trying to see. Okay, mine's not that much. It's like maybe 1,500 a year for all my glaucoma meds.
Yeah,
But it's just money where I'm just like, it sucks. Like I didn't ask to have glaucoma. You
right.
know, it's like I was also it was I've had issues since I was born. Like I didn't even have much of a say.
Right. That's another rabbit hole that we could chase down. Did you choose to incarnate to have those experiences?
How it even like this is a scientific part of it. It's like how did that even happen? I mean, still today my mom unfortunately keeps blaming herself, which is obviously is not like I don't blame her at all, you know? It's one of those
Yeah.
situations where it's like obviously as a mother, she's going to blame herself because I was born and I was born with like my eye being robbed already, but I kind of wonder, and I don't know if this is like outside of what we're like topic wise, but I kind of wonder if like how that happened, you know? Because I feel like everything happens for a reason. Doctors just always told her, oh, it's just a fluke, it happens. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a
Yeah.
reason for everything.
Well, we have to understand there is no mistakes in the universe, that
Hmm.
everything happens for a reason, and sometimes we'll never know the answers. And that's hard for the mind to accept.
It is like what I do believe what you're saying. Like I'm a huge universe person. I'm like I love angel numbers, all of that. Like we can talk all day about that. And so I always think in my head, I'm just like, okay, you're right. There's no mistakes. But why?
Sometimes that's also a mind game. Sometimes there are no answers and being okay with not knowing. But for me, I
Yeah.
had to get sicker and sicker and sicker, to the point where like I said, I have no concept of healing. If I didn't go on that ghost hunt, if I wasn't curious, I'd probably be in a wheelchair today. 'Cause that's how where I was
Mm.
progressing. Because my relapsing remitting MS was changing to secondary progressive MS. So that means you're in a constant decline. You know, 10 years, it's been 14 years since I had MS. So 14 years from that point, I would definitely be in a wheelchair by now or in a nursing home.
So I want your opinion on something. What I've been doing lately for like stress reduction, because I'm gonna tell you before I forgot, because I was like didn't want to forget to get into it, is like certain like when you listen to music like certain frequencies is like healing and such. So like there's a song that my one of my favorite artists came out with, and she kept saying that it's going to be very healing in this, and I'm like, okay, is it the lyrics? And then so I listened to it by the way like 2 or 3 times a day because I get stressed out just from daily life, so I always listen to it before I go to bed just to like relieve myself. And I swear I feel like the blood rush to my brain, and I just feel like all this energy. So I guess my question for you is because we're talking about spirit. So I feel like this was kind of more like physiology. Oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? I can't even talk. Sorry. The taking between two, like connection.
Yeah, because you have to realize that everything breaks down to energy and vibration or
Hmm.
particle and wave at the smallest essence. because this body, we think it's solid, but you get an electron microscope, you keep going lower and lower, you just see more and more space. That this hand is not solid, that nothing is solid. And that's just one of the weird experiences I have now after my healing experiences, that nothing appears solid to me. Everything appears vibrating to me. It's just electrons repressing each other.
Okay.
It's just electrons bouncing off each other. That's all it's doing.
No way. Okay. Okay, people on YouTube, you're getting a treat because you're seeing this. People on Spotify and Apple, I'm so sorry. You're so, and what, you would think that it's like blood flow, but now I'm just like, I would be looking at my hand all day now. Crazy, crazy. Okay, a chronic illness, Alzheimer's. I want to challenge you with that one. What's your take on that?
Yeah, because I talked to a doctor about that recently. I had him on my podcast, and he said Alzheimer's is really diabetes 3. That's the way he defines it. So I
Okay.
never really worked with anyone with Alzheimer's because I really don't know how I really would work with them because I never had that. Well, I had my mom with Alzheimer's, so I really couldn't do much to help her because one of the things for this self-healing I do is that you have to be alert and aware to do the
Yeah.
daily practice, to do the work. So I would do my healing energies, and that would be beneficial to her. But it was just really a tough situation. Is that if I help her, I prolong her suffering in a way. The more she's
Mm,
going to be living with this. Because I really saw this with my father. He was very chronically ill. So he would go from nursing home to hospital to nursing home to hospital. He was constantly bouncing back and forth. So it was really like the tough point. Like I was helping my father, like when he was in the hospital, I would help him and we'd go back to the nursing home. Then when I wasn't around, he would go back to the nursing home, back to the hospital. So I saw that I was artificially propping him up, that this was not his best journey. So I had to let him go in a way that this was his course. I couldn't continue to prop him up. So that's one of the tough things I had to decide. Like this isn't fair to my father. I'm helping him when he's in the hospital. Then he gets to the nursing home, back to the hospital, nursing home, hospital, and eventually you have to get to this point: is his body is worn out. I can't keep
mm,
propping him up. It's not fair to him.
true. Yeah, no, that makes sense. We're at a point where you're just like, okay, I'm helping, but I'm not making it worse. Kind of
Kind of
like keeping him
interfering.
right. Yeah, that's the word for it. Like interfering with that. No, that totally makes a lot of sense. So you are the founder and CEO of Beyond Head Trash. I looked at your website. I see that you have a book. I also see that there was a couple of I didn't really understand what it was. It said like I was like it was like $11 and I like adding it to cart. I just didn't really know what it was.
Yeah,
Can you explain that?
yeah, it's the Vibrant Soul Society. So basically, that's my group program is the Vibrant Soul Society. We have to remember outside of our thoughts, outside of the diagnosis, outside of the stories that we tell ourselves is our deeper essence, that
Hmm.
vibrant soul. So it's the Vibrant Soul Society where I'm doing they're live 3 to 4 times a week in my group programming to help people go beyond their mental stories, beyond that head trash, beyond their thoughts, and into their deeper essence, into that inner healer. And that's what I really try to help people is don't allow your diagnosis to impact your destiny because they have nothing to do with each other. It's simply your mindset that is creating your destiny. And you have all these diagnoses, you're narrowing your destiny so you don't have this bright, happy future that if you keep so what's what I'm hoping for once I get into this 30-day program with people, they'll continue doing the daily practice even though they're not in the program because the mind will keep quiet, the stress will stay down, their immune system will stay healthier, they're less likely to get colds, to get sick, because when you're stressed, you weaken your immune system. So if you constantly reduce that stress and you continue the daily practice, for 5, 10 minutes a day, whatever it is for you, it builds up your immune system naturally because you're removing all that cortisol and all those bad hormones you don't want running through the body. You want to keep them quiet. And that's really comes down to what Bruce Lipton talks about, the epigenetics.
I love
That are
that word.
yeah, epigenetics. We can turn our genes on They can express on or they can express off. And what I was doing through my meditation, unknown to me, was I was turning my genes off. 'Cause I was in this place of peace where they weren't having the cortisol. I wasn't in fear anymore about my health because I was getting sicker and sicker. So I would wake up every morning and say, what else is going to go wrong today?
Me.
So I was my mindset, oh, I woke up, what's going to go wrong today? So that was my mindset. Everything was going wrong, and I would have really horrendous days.
I used to be like that like often where I'll wake up and have like those moments. And that was more when I was working my 9 to 5 in a call center, and every single day someone would yell at me and say horrible things to me, and it's just back to back calls of just people treating me like garbage. Naturally that's gonna stress you out, right? So that's when I had that thoughts. It's like I was just so used to the constant stress, and that was not good for me. My bipolar so bad where I called into work like once or twice a week. I had to like go in FMLA. I slept till like 6 p.m. and I was like literally just like such a different person then. But yeah, no, if you wake up and you think you're gonna have a bad day, yeah, you're gonna have a bad day. Like actually, yesterday I had a pretty bad day. today
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
having today I'm having a good day though. That's good. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, your book. Can you talk about what people can expect from your book?
Yeah, so I have two books I give away for free because my
Nice.
first book was a traditional publisher, so I got royalties from that. They actually purchased the manuscript and they did all that stuff. So I had a traditional book contract. So the publisher went out of business. Now I just give it away. And that's in my Beyond Head Trash group on Facebook. It's there. People can just download it. And it's also in my Vibrant Soul Society as well, and the library that I have there. And for everyone that I work with, I give a copy of my book because it has steps in there. And I would say you need to find your own recipe. Here are some suggested practices. Which ones work for you? So it's really like you need to pick and choose and find your recipe. That this is what I did. This is how I was sick and disabled for 38 years. This is how I got out of it. And that's basically what the first book is. The second book is breaking the habit of negative thought addiction, because I like to say that our greatest addiction is addiction to our thoughts.
No, it is. Yeah.
But most people aren't even aware that they're addicted to their thoughts. They have no separation. There's a lot of people think that I am bipolar. That is me. I have MS. That is me. No, the body has bipolar. The body has MS. Your soul, your spirit has no indication what that is. It's
Mhm.
just sitting there like, I can help you through this. Are you listening?
That's true. Yeah, you're right. The spirit's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here trying to live life. And now you're out here labeling me like crazy. So rude.
Right. Well, spirit is just here for the human. Is just it's saying
Here
this
to
is the
live its
human.
life.
This is the human experience. It's neither good nor bad. It's your creation. So it's the spirit is the observer. It doesn't say anything is bad or
Yeah.
negative. It's just
Yeah.
the human experience to help you to learn, to grow, to expand. That I need 38 years of suffering to say, hey, I can help other people with this now. I know I found a way out, and I'm seeing this way out for other individuals as well. And let's go do a individual program now, and we're just going to do this 30-day intensive to see if we can unlock their inner healer, go beyond their diagnosis and unlock that inner healer. And I'm just really curious how that's going to work, and we'll have you in the program as well, so it'll be very interesting to see how you do with this practice. We'll see what we can do. The stress levels we can definitely get down, and
Hmm.
then we can see what happens from there when we don't get all the cortisol in the body. What happens? And if I
Yeah.
keep doing spiritual transmissions on your right eye every day, what's going to happen with that? I have no idea, because I've never in my life gave someone consistent 30-day transmissions. I have never
Hmm.
done that. I've seen profound, I mean profound changes after a 15-minute session, after a 90-minute session. I never have given a transmission to someone every single day for 30 days straight. So I'm also curious, what's that going to do along with their daily practice?
Yes. Hey. Can't wait to see. And I'm so excited for like my audience to learn more about you. I'm gonna put in all your information in the podcast episode description. But I do want to say Thank you so much for coming on to my podcast and sharing all your wisdom and your story. And so I just want to show how appreciative I am of you.
Yeah, great talking to you, Justine. Thanks for having me on your show.